Happy New Year, everyone. So, since nothing really special comes out in January, here's what I'm gonna do. There are quite a few movies that are getting sequels this year, so I figured I'd take this month to talk about them, or at least the ones I've seen that I liked. So let's start off with Pacific Rim. I love this movie. So Pacific Rim is directed by Guillermo del Toro. He just did Shape of Water. He also did Pan's Labyrinth, the Hellboy movies. He's known for doing really bizarre, out there, far-fetched concepts in movies. And this movie came out in July 2013, so about 4.5 years ago. Pacific Rim takes place in the future. There is this fissure at the bottom of the ocean between two tectonic plates. And at this fissure, this portal to another dimension pretty much has opened, and these giant monsters have come through, and they're destroying cities and doing what giant monsters do. We call them kaijus. And they just keep on coming, and the military is not really doing enough. So we, as a species, have created giant robots we call Jaegers to fight these monsters. Now we have a movie with giant robots versus giant monsters. And before you think this sounds cheesy, it's not. Because this is the ultimate robots versus monsters movie. Of course, the movie can't just have robots and monsters and that's it. It does need characters, and in my opinion, the characters are not that weak. That's one of the biggest complaints I've heard about this movie, is that the characters are weak. They got pretty good backstories if you ask me. The main character is Charlie Hunnam as Raleigh Beckett. He's a Jaeger pilot. You see, the way these Jaegers work is that they take two people, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, and they have to do this neural handshake. They have to mind meld through memories with the body of a giant machine in order to operate it. So Raleigh was originally with his brother, operating the Jaeger Gypsy Danger. Gypsy Danger is awesome. That's like, the main Jaeger in this movie. You just look at the design of this thing, you're like, that is the giant robot to end all giant robots. I mean, I like Optimus Prime, but Optimus Prime's got nothing on Gypsy Danger. But anyways, Raleigh and his brother were in Gypsy Danger trying to fight a kaiju, but then Raleigh's brother just got ripped out of the Jaeger. Pretty dramatic thing for Raleigh to go through. I'm like, yeah, that's legit. So a few years later, he's in construction. He's not a Jaeger pilot anymore, but he gets called on by Idris Elba playing the Marshal Stacker Pentecost. Idris Elba's awesome in this movie. In fact, this is probably one of my favorite roles that Idris Elba has ever played. He is the man in charge, the guy everyone should be looking up to. He's strict. Like, if he gives you an order, you would better follow it. One of my favorite scenes is when he's talking to Raleigh. He's like, I am a fixed point, the last man standing. Do I make myself clear? And then Raleigh's like, yes, sir. He turns around, he's like, good. I'm like, yeah, that's some really good acting from Idris Elba right there. And then you have this chick named Mako. You don't really know much about her, but she has a really good backstory too. And she's paired up with Raleigh. Their chemistry is really good, as is her chemistry with Idris Elba. So these characters have really good interactions, but let's face it, that's not the reason you went to see this movie. The reason you went to go see Pacific Rim when it was in theaters was because of the giant creatures and the robots and the fights. Which is the big bummer about this movie, is that the only way to watch this movie is in IMAX, because this is one of those movies where the star of the movie is 100 feet tall. I said this in my Kong Skull Island review. The only way to watch these movies was in IMAX, because the one word to describe these movies is big. So watching it on any other screen that's not an IMAX screen just doesn't do the movie justice. Because these fights, man, first of all, yeah, why do they always take place at night during a rainstorm? It's kind of a nitpick. I mean, it looks really cool and it's lit really well. And I guess that's why in the trailer for the second one we see a big fight that's during the daytime. It doesn't change the fact that when these fights happen in the first Pacific Rim movie, it's awesome. Because these robots are all moving all big and slow like these robots really would. Because yeah, these robots are freaking huge. And before you think this sounds cheesy, it isn't. I mean, these robots have all sorts of weapons. They got swords. The elbow rocket's one of my favorites. Because that kaiju is just gonna get decked, just a right pace in the snoot, just I mean, the centerpiece action scene in the movie is I think it's in Shanghai, and it's funny because you get Ron Perlman. Ron Perlman is one of Guillermo del Toro's staple actors, and he's really funny in this movie because he plays the head of this kaiju black market, and he has scenes with the scientists. I almost forgot to talk about the scientists in this movie. The kaiju scientists are played by Bern Gornum and Charlie Day, and that's another cool thing about this movie, is that it's not just robots versus monsters. We're actually finding out about these monsters, how they operate, why they're coming over here to Earth and just trampling everything. See, the movie's got substance, but these scientists are really animated people. Like, Charlie Day talks really fast in his really high voice, from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Bern Gornum talking in his, really uppity British voice really fast, but it does work for the vibe of the movie. But getting back to the action, the fights in this movie, like I said, they're awesome. The cinematography is really good, because it's not shaky cam, they're fixed angle shots. I mean, the Jaegers and the kaijus, they are tearing up cities. There is no regard for insurance anywhere here. They're destroying buildings, and before you think this sounds cheesy, it isn't. So yeah, this movie is not one of those Oscar touch your soul make you cry movies. It's there to be fun, and it's for the action. The music in Pacific Rim was done by Ramin Djawadi. He did Iron Man and Game of Thrones as well, but I'm pretty sure he was picked to do this movie because of Iron Man. Because his scores for this movie and Iron Man are pretty similar. And yeah, the score is awesome. The main theme he wrote, that he got Tom Morello to come in and play that. That's awesome. It's a great score. So Pacific Rim, in my opinion, has great characters with legit backstories, but of course the highlight is the action, the visual effects. The fights are big and grand in scale between the robots and the monsters. The lore is really cool. When I saw this movie the first time, right when it ended, I was like, yeah, this should be a trilogy. And now it's getting a sequel. So Pacific Rim, have you seen it? What did you think about it? And are you looking forward to Pacific Rim Uprising? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe.